What we've done at the moment is just emptied this tank to catch the fish out, and it's unbelievably difficult to catch fish, particularly when there's any sort of obstacles. So you've got to like literally get everything out, because what happens with fish over time, particularly cichlids, is they end up crossbreeding and crossbreeding and crossbreeding, and if you keep these same fish for too long, you end up with basically one species of fish, because all of these fish in an aquarium will all breed with each other. So even if you may have started with 10 different species of fish, and maybe 4 to 6 of them are actually breeding, they'll actually breed with each other until eventually you end up with literally one type of fish. So that's why on a semi-regular basis, every couple of years, I highly recommend doing a spring clean. And that's where you pull the whole tank apart, pull all the rocks out, and go through and catch out all the fish that are looking a bit average, because the crossbred fish will be very inconsistent and typically not as colourful. So that thins out your fish, and then that lets you get some new fish. And getting some new fish is really what keeps you interested in this hobby. When you keep the same fish for too long, you've sort of seen them. When you get new fish, it's something new to learn, something new to watch. And it's really good for your interest. Keep your interest nice and fresh by not keeping the same fish all the time. So when you go to redecorate your aquarium again, one of the things I really recommend you do is make it as different as possible to last time. So if last time you had like a valley, maybe this time make like an outcrop, and just try to put all the rocks back in as different as you can, because that changes the whole world for the fish and makes it different for you to watch. Now you find after a few years these fake plants start to look terrible, so every few years just chuck them out, get yourself some new ones that'll look nice and fresh again. Now in the meantime, what you can do with these plants is throw them out in the sun, because the algae will the sun will sort of bleach the algae off, and they'll get you a little bit more life in the plant. But ultimately, giving your plants a bit of a swap out every now and then is a very good idea. So what we're going to do now is just choose which of the fish go back in, because there's a lot of crossbred fish now. And sometimes it's easier just to catch all the fish out and then put the ones back in you want. If you go trying to catch selective ones and avoid other ones, you'll make it 5 times harder to catch the fish. So there's a few little babies that have managed to stay in there. So when you're doing a job like this, make sure you're brutal with what fish you take out, because you go to a lot of effort to go and give the tank a whole spring clean and allow you to take all the rocks out and remove the fish. I'd rather be a little bit brazen and only put back in the ones you really want, because getting new ones with new shapes and new colours is really what will reignite your interest. Now one thing that is a great idea is a top-up system. So this one here has just got a basic top-up here. For fish like cichlids, you sort of can't go too wrong. So that means that as the tank evaporates, this tank will fill itself back up with water, which is a wonderful feature. And you also can use this for your water changes, but you do have to remember that when you're topping the aquarium back up again, every sort of 5 centimeters, you want to hit it again with water rager. And when you hit the water rager, you want to do a full dose, not a half dose, because you need to treat the whole tank. Because if you just go and fill it right up and put the anti-chlorine at the end, the water rager, then if you're unlucky and there's too much chlorine in the tap water that day, then you can nuke the good bacteria in the system, or potentially even kill the fish. So getting in the habit of using water rager is great, and don't go getting complacent where you think you don't need it, because the reality is water boards like Sydney Water Board, they'll actually put the chlorine into a maximum minimum level according to what pathogens might be present. So you can do a water change 5 times and have no problem, and then you can do it the 10th time, for example, and then suddenly have a problem and end up with ammonium nitrite by killing your good bacteria, or even potentially killing off your fish. So we're just adding the salt and the KH GH salts. All the fish are settling back in. Reflections everywhere. That'll quickly clear up and then we're in business. We're going to add an air stone as well because it's good to have aeration, because at the moment it's got a power head, and having an aerator for a bit of redundancy in case the power head falls down the wall is a very good thing for the fish. So one thing I want to be very conscious of is surface agitation. We want it to ripple as much as possible, so we're going to add a aerator in this tank. The other thing is if you don't have good surface agitation, that means your CO2 level will tend to be higher and you'll tend to get a little bit more algae as well. So ruffling your surface is a really good thing. Good for the fish and good for reducing your algae. And with these tanks too, if you ever find you're getting too much algae, just turn the light off for a while, because reducing your light will reduce your algae.